What's good, everybody? It's from and today, guys, I'm coming to you with a brand new video. This time, guys, it's going to be the best meta decks post Banlist. Now, again, guys, that Banlist was absolutely crazy. If you guys have not seen my reaction video, first reaction video, it was a quick little 2-3 minute video. I'm gonna throw it up on the screen somewhere over here, guys. Before we start the video, of course, like, comment, subscribe. You guys can see from the kind of categories I have meta deck, playable, let him cook, and filler. So basically, filler just going to be like anything that you can potentially get away with at like a local level, maybe. Let him cook is going to be there's potential, but if people can sauce up their deck profiles, then there's a chance. Playable is anything that's not meta, of course, and meta is just that's kind of what the format's going to be defined by. Again, it's going to be kind of a short format because we have Rhoda coming out, and we all know Rhoda gets a little bit crazy with Snake Eye cards. But without further ado, guys, we will start off with the video. So, of course, the first deck that I'm going to be discussing is going to be Yubel. Now, Yubel, they did lose a couple of cards, so they ended up getting Opening of the Spirit Gates to 1, meaning that they're probably going to have to play more Dark Beckoning Bees, and Dark Beckoning Bees by itself is not really the best card, especially with Gates at 1, and they also lost Lacrima, so the potential of kind of ending on Desiree is going to be hurt a little bit. Not too severe in my opinion. I still think Yubel is going to be the best deck of the format, especially because it can still kind of use sequence, and a lot of decks cannot use sequence, and of course they can use the best sequence target, which is going to be Aerial Eater, guys. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and put Yubel as the best deck of the format. Again, this will change, of course, post Rhoda, but for now, I'll put Yubel there. The next deck, guys, we have here is going to be Purrely. Now, Purrely is a deck that I actually played. I didn't really want to buy the Fiendsmith cards. I couldn't justify them, so I played Purrely, and I actually did end up seeing success. The only issue is like Snake Eye was just absolutely so crazy. But with like the other hand traps and not losing to Nib, I really think Purrely, like, it has potential to be in like the let him cook category. I'm gonna leave it for there, and if I feel like it might be able to move to filler, then definitely we will move on to that. Speaking of the next deck, it's going to be Imseti deck, so I'm going to count this as like a Horus pile deck, so like a 60 card with grass. I'm probably gonna put this in filler. I feel like there is a lot of like potential and people will be testing for sure, but I think it's just copium. Honestly, I don't think it's too crazy in my opinion, but I do think that there is potential for like someone to do like a cool little video on it, but personally I don't know. And then there is the Chimera deck, so this is going to be like branded Chimera, Chimera Fusion, Illusion, whatever. I think it's still good, especially with the Fiendsmith engine. I think it's one of those decks that has potential to kind of, take over the format, be a sleeper deck that'll like eke its way into kind of a YCS top. I think putting it in Let Him Cook is pretty good. Like, you're not going to waste your time, especially people on this deck. I think it has a lot of lines to win. Ritual Beast, I'm going to put in meta deck. Again, they didn't lose Shifter, they didn't lose Colossus, they didn't lose Protoss, which is kind of nuts to me. Like, I don't really know why Konami didn't do that. But again, Ritual Beast still going to be good, especially because like it can go into time fairly well. It has its ways to kind of play through it, and we saw that it can get success, especially with Colossus and Protoss surviving the list. So again, Ritual Beast, in my opinion, will be the meta deck. Again, Yubel will be the best deck, but Ritual Beast won't be too far behind. Now, branded, this is kind of going to be like some sort of branded variant. Branded variant is going to be filler, like it's just at 1. But if you're playing branded Chimera or you're playing branded Gimmick Puppet Turbo, I think it's going to be playable. I don't know if it's going to be meta because I do think that branded fusion to 1 just makes it a little more difficult to hard open. And I mean, like, there's just other ways that kind of hinder the deck. So I think putting it in playable will be better than anything. This is going to be Runick. I think Runick variants are going to be playable / let him cook. This is going to be Runick Stun. Runick Stun I'm going to put in meta deck. Unfortunately, they lost Skill Drain, but they didn't lose anything else. I really thought Fountain needs to go to 1 or things of that nature. So again, the discussion around Runick is Konami doesn't want to hit it because they don't really necessarily think it's too powerful or it'll kill the deck, and they want it to be kind of like more successful, I guess. But in my opinion, Runick is just like direct stun support. Any new Runick card automatically goes into stun, and new stun card automatically goes to Runick. And I feel like we're just sick and tired of this deck kind of going around. I think when they splash it into kind of combo decks, like Runick Naturia or Runick White Forest, it's pretty cool to see. But just Runick Stun in general, just not the way the deck should be played, in my opinion. And for that reason, I think that it should definitely be hit in the next list. But unfortunately, it's going to be meta. Speaking of kind of a Runick variant, we will talk about White Forest here. White Forest, like, I think Toy White Forest is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, Runick White Forest is going to be the best. And I think I'm gonna put White Forest in playable, where there's a lot of variants that can kind of get away with it. I just feel like it's just not as good as the other meta decks. But again, I think White Forest has potential to be very powerful. Moving on, guys, we will be talking about Fire King. Now, again, if they have Ulcanex, it'll be different. We don't know if Ulcanex is announced in Rhoda yet, but I think that Fire King itself is probably going to be filler. But I think if you play it with Snake Eye as of now, I think it'll be playable. Obviously, them losing Appaloosa sucks. I think that now, like, if they end on Amblowill, Flameburge, and then Flameburge for the IP, which is, like, the old board, I think it's pretty good. Especially because they can do the line where they go, like, Princess, and then they go Princess, Reborn, Arvada, so it forces the Nib there. Otherwise, you have an Arvada that can negate the Nib. It's also one of those only decks that can kind of play around Nibiru. Kind of like Yubel, how they have, like, Phantom. This deck can just go ahead and normal summon out our Arvada, and we can negate, so it's pretty good. I think Sunseed, whatever deck this is planned, I had to put it out there. It didn't get hit. I'm sorry for, like, all the EU viewers, like my 5 EU viewers that you guys have. I genuinely think this deck is absolutely ass cheeks. It should definitely be filler. I don't think it's that good. Again, EU just doesn't know what they do. Of course, there's a combo deck that, like, if you don't open hand traps, like, you're screwed anyways. But I think it's just a filler deck. I think Drytron's also a filler deck. Shout out my little brother. He's live and die by Drytron. But them getting Ava is kind of cool. But again, if Yubel's the best deck, people will be playing Bestials in the main deck to counter that. And again, Drytron just kind of gets hurt by that. D-Shifter is the best deck. Like I said before, D-Shifter didn't get hit, right? So any deck that can kind of play D-Shifter can get away with it. A funny thing is, like, Yubel can play D-Shifter and play under it. So again, I'll just put D-Shifter as the best deck. I think Voiceless Voice, in my opinion, a lot of people are underrating it. Now, I know people did play, like, branded Voices at some point. So, like, putting branded fusion to one kind of hinders the deck. I feel like Voiceless Voice is, like, it's so close to being good. I think I'll put it in playable, in my opinion. I think I'm very high on this deck, especially because it's fairly cheap as well, and it can work very well with I think it's like Aprodracosis or something. Maybe I'll put up a combo video for you guys to see, but I feel like this deck is, like, really good. It's very underrated in my opinion. So I think Voiceless Voice is pretty playable. I think Tenpai Dragon is going to be a meta deck. Not even I think. It's probably, like, the second best meta deck. They lost the field spell and they lost Pot of Prosperity, which is actually two massive consistency pieces, especially because the field spell is really potent. I just think that people will play, like, more Doradoras. I have been seeing people playing the Chimera field spell with set rotation. So you play, like, one Sanguine Summoning, a Terraforming, double Chimera field spell, and set rotation. So you still have, like, 3 ways of getting to the field spell. And even if you open Pot of Prosperity, you still have access to kind of getting to it. I'm not too sure if Hydra can search Sanguine Summoning as well. So, I mean, that's another thing to kind of account for. So I feel like Tenpai is really, really powerful, honestly. I'm not gonna lie. It's probably the second best deck of the format, right behind kind of Yubel. I think the next deck is going to be our Thunder Dragon deck. I'm gonna put it and let him cook. I'm not gonna lie, I think this deck is really good. I think there's probably space for, like, some sort of 40 to 45 card pure Thunder Dragon where it plays, like, Bestials, and it's specifically made to counteract the metagame. I think Colossus just being a blanket effect, not being able to search, is kind of crazy. Any of these decks that kind of lose to Droll, quote unquote, it struggles against, right? And now you can kind of end on Colossus Titan. Yeah, it does lose to Nib, but there are other ways around it. Like, previously when you used to play it, you could go, like, the Floodgate version with, like, Macro, Dimensional Fissure. It also works with D-Shifter as well, right? So you can kind of end on these Floodgates with Colossus on the board, and you can play around Nibiru. You can also set, like, the virus cards as well, things of that nature. Just something to consider, right? I think that it's a really good deck. It's definitely not gonna be filler. I think there's potential for it to be kind of in Let Him Cook, especially because Grass is back, right? You can play some sort of 60 card madness. Speaking of kind of a deck that kind of got hit on the list, not really kind of, it did get hit on the list, it's gonna be Gimmick Puppet. I'm gonna call this deck absolutely filler garbage, honestly. It's like one of those really shitty Naruto filler episodes you just don't remember, right? I think nowadays you can't really FTK, and if you can, it's gonna be, like, really gimmicky, literally. I know that there's, like, the Leo FTK, and I know that you might need only 1 Dark Strings for the FTK, but, like, now you won't be seeing it as much. Yeah, that field spell is still crazy, but you still won't be seeing it as much. Like, maybe an occasional, like, one trick locals player, or maybe, like, at a YCS you play against, like, one random guy and then you never see him ever again. So I feel like this is a deck that, like, it is scary, but again, to each own, right? Moving on to a deck that I think is playable as well, it's going to be Memento. I think Memento is a really good deck, especially with the Fiendsmith engine as well. It's pretty legit, I'm not gonna lie. And then moving on to kind of the last 2 decks I got over here, guys. The first deck we are going to be talking about is going to be Majespecter. So Majespecter did get Kieran to 3. I really did think Electromite was going to come back to 1, and if that was the case, I think the deck would be a lot better. I think Kieran to 3 is actually really good for the deck. I think being able to constantly get kind of Kieran in loop is good, but I mean, if the card didn't do much at 1, it's not gonna do much as 3, especially because it kind of loses to, like, every deck that's, like, above it. So I think that putting in Let Him Cook is pretty good. I feel like filler is also not that bad kind of to put it in, but I think I'm gonna put it in Let Him Cook for now. And then moving on, we will be talking about the last deck, which is going to be Tearlaments. I feel like I needed to talk about this just because kind of Grass came back and people want to play, like, some sort of 60 card nonsense variant where, like, it's inspired by Master Duel. But I think that's kind of a pretty solid tier list for now. Of course, with like Azamina and with all those other cards coming out, I think it's gonna be different. But in my opinion, yeah. So I think any shifter deck is going to be really good. I think Yubel is the best deck of the format, followed by Tenpai Dragon, Ritual Beast, and Runick Stun. The 5th spot is kind of up there for debate. I think Memento might be able to do it. I think Fire King, Snake Eye might be able to do it. Then moving on for playable again, Gimmick Puppet Lock is just like an FTK on its own. Whitewood is really good. The fact that they lost Calamity doesn't really hurt the deck too much, especially because like you have other ways of kind of facilitating your plays. There's a player on my locals, his name is Ben. Shout out Ben. Ben doesn't even go for that line. Like he just does like the whole Whitewoods kind of shenanigans, sets up negates and synchro monsters and just kind of disrupts you from there. So I think it's a really good card. Snake Eye Fire King, yeah, I think this deck is still good. Especially because like you lose the consistency, it's fine because you just go back to playing like one Ash and one Flamberge and doing some sort of shenanigans like that, where you still end on kind of what is it, like the Phoenix Pop with Ambler Will. Ambler Will can still reborn. You can still do like Heat Soul play, Sunlight Wolf. You can also do Top Hatter as well because there's not a lot of restrictions in that deck, which is another card that I want to talk about. I think Top Hatter is gonna be really good this format, and just everything else as well, because like you don't have that boss monster to end on. So I think if people go like Top Hatter IP, it's pretty nasty, especially if there's like a deck that can kind of put up pseudo negates, which is Snake Eye Fire King. And then speaking of negates, we also have Voiceless, like, you know, Skull Guardian comes out on the board, gets a bunch of negates, especially with Apple Dracosis coming out as well. You can do like Verudrish plays. So I think Voiceless is like pretty poised to do pretty well. Honestly, I would put Snake Eye Fire King like this and I'll do it like that, right? Maybe even I would put it in like the best one of them. Someone's gonna skip and kind of like look at it and be like, what the hell's going on? But yeah, and then moving on, of course, we have Memento. Memento is also a really good deck. I just feel like right now, the way that the format is shaping up, I feel like Memento is set up pretty well, especially with the Fiendsmith cards. So yeah, and then into Let Him Cook. Let Him Cook, like I said before, there's potential depending. I think Purrely is really good because you can play around Nibiru, and if people just like end up playing random hand traps like Bishios, Purrely doesn't really lose to it. When I played it, I actually feel like it was a really good deck. It's just that Snake Eye was just way too fast for it. But against like other decks, it's really good, especially because like people aren't gonna be on kind of Kaijus and other things like that. So I feel like this is a really good deck. And then there is Illusion Chimera as well. So Illusion Chimera is going to be pretty good. I think it's like in the Let Him Cook category, similar to Colossus and Nue, which is Majespecter. Majespecter could technically go down, but it's fine. And then we got 60 card decks. We got Sun Avalon, Sun Seed cards. Shout out Jessica Robinson. And then we also have the Drytrons, which is filler. Then we also have the Gimmick Puppets, which is gimmicky. And then we have the Tearlaments. So that's it kind of for the tier list. I did forget Magical Muskets. I'll put Muskets as like Let Him Cook because like it was only good against the Snake Eye variant. And if like Snake Eye's not good anymore, you know what I mean? But that's for my tier list, guys. If you guys have any other decks that I missed, comment them down below, guys. Again, hopefully I plan to stream. I keep saying I want to stream, but hopefully I plan on streaming like today, tomorrow, whatever. So stay tuned for that, guys. Check out all my socials down below. Check out my Twitter. I'm really active. Check out my Discord. I'm trying to be active, but there's only like 3 people who talk on it. And my name's Hamza. Like I always say, guys, keep on shining. Never gonna dreams. Peace.